Hey, this is Mark Lettieri. Welcome to JamPlay.com. Today, in this particular module, we're going to talk about harmony, voicings, and progression, chord progressions. And with this first lesson, I want to talk about one of my favorite shapes. I call it the 2 chord because it involves the second interval. You could call it an add 2 chord. You could actually call it a bunch of different things depending on where you put it and depending on where you put your bass note, as you will see. So I'll go ahead and show you what I mean. It's that sound. You've probably heard it a million times on records from everybody from the Police to Toto to your favorite worship artist to gospel music to, well, R&B, anything really. I'm playing in the key of G for this particular shape. And when I say I call it the 2 chord, well, here's why. It's the second interval of the G major scale, right? So we have the 1, we have the 2, and then we have the 5 on top. Over G makes this nice G add 2 sound. But what's really great about this is you can take the same shape with a G in the bottom, you take the same shape, put an E in the bottom, and all of a sudden it becomes an E minor, right? You could put an A in the bottom, it becomes like an A dominant sus4, right? You could put a B flat in the bottom, it becomes this really nice B flat major 6/9 sound. I didn't move my fingers one bit. They stayed right here the whole time. Now, of course, you could play it in a higher octave. Concept still applies with moving these bass notes. I like to use chords like this to kind of get a lot of mileage out of a single sound. You get these nice droning sounds if you'd like to play an arpeggio. You're probably looking at my fingers going like, that looks like it hurts. And it kind of does. It's not the most practical thing to do. Some of you who maybe have larger hands could voice it like this. But the point of a chord like this is that it leaves your bass player or keyboard player, whoever's arranging your bass, to kind of move around a little bit and come up with some different chord progressions just based off this one shape, right? So I'm using chords like this all the time in my music. I think the first time I heard it was either on a Steely Dan record. It may have even been a gospel track where I heard that sound. And what that is, it's the same 2 chord, but with a B in the bottom, so it's like a G major over B. And it's really nice. It's a nice sort of substitute for maybe a B minor chord. Watch. If you add that, in this case, if it's a B minor, and you're raising the 5, it's kind of like a B minor with a sharp 5, but that sounds weird. So I just would think of it as a G add 2 over B. It's really nice if you want to go to the 4 chord of a major progression, right? So now guess what? You can use this same shape, move it up to where it would live in C, you have a C. It's nice. It gives your chords a little bit more space because the 2 and the 5 make a nice cluster, and the 1 and the 2 give it that whole step kind of ambiance, if you will. So I prepared this track that I'll play it first and show you how it goes. And it's really just gonna be these shapes moved around on the D, G, and B strings, right? We're gonna move them around, and then occasionally I'm gonna switch to the same sound, but on the G, B, and E strings. So you might see me go from here to up here, right? Or maybe I'll go from here to down here. Play like a B minor 11. You can check that out. So it's a pretty simple voicing, but when you start moving the bass notes around, you can get some really colorful sounds. Maybe we'll go play the track. What do you think? Okay, so that was the track. I hope you like 80s sounding Prince drums, because that's what you're gonna get. I do. So that's what we have here. You probably were like, wow, that's a lot of chords. Yeah, it kind of was, but it really was only like one or two shapes. Actually, it was two shapes. It was this on our D string, and it was the same thing on our G string, right? So I'm gonna kind of walk you through most of this. Now, again, there's a lot here, but let's maybe take like the first couple bars, shall we? So, because I didn't really move my fingers at all for quite a bit. So we have our G add 2, and then the bass plays an E. So we end up with that E minor 11 sound. So that's what I was just doing. I was going, and if you're playing along with this when you do later, you can play any arpeggio you'd like. That's just what I liked to do over this particular rhythm. So, right? Bass keeps moving along, but my fingers stay in the same place, right? G, then it goes to G add 2 over B, then like a C add 2. There we go. Don't do that. I mean, you can do that if you'd like. Another C add 2, right? Then it drops back down. Same shape, but now it's an A7 sus4 because we move the bass to A, right? Then I believe it goes back up. Bass drops to F, so we have like an F6-9 chord. Back to our A7 sus4. Then stuff starts to move a little bit more. We end up with these, I actually went from G major to G minor here, as you'll see, so, right? Now this next chord is a really beautiful sound. It's like a B flat major 6-9. Now you can play it, if we're using this shape, your B flat would be here. You can play it, you can kind of play a variation of it like that. It's a little more comfortable, but there's no A. We want that A interval because we want this sound. So let your bass player do that. Or if you have Alan Holdsworth hands, do it yourself. But you know, how many of us do, right? Okay, continuing on. Now, it gets a little weirder. I decided to change keys again because I love this voicing. So I took the shape and I moved it all the way up. So now we have C sharp, D sharp, G sharp. And what happens there, over A. Now this I would call like, it's like a modal voicing. If you're familiar with your modes, there's a mode called Lydian. That would be a very appropriate Lydian mode because we have that sharp 4, right? So in A it would be the 3, the sharp 4, and the 7. But again, guys, gals, it's the same shape. We just moved it, and I changed the bass. Now it sounds expensive, right? Okay, so there we have it. I moved it down a whole step. We have our B, I'm looking at my chart here. We have our B add 2, back up to the A. You can call it like an A major 7 sharp 11 if you'd like. That's probably the best term for it. Then, and I hinted at this at the beginning of my spiel here, these kind of like gospel voicings. So it's the same shape. We're going to put a C sharp in the bottom. So you have a C sharp over A add 2. You can consider these maybe almost like piano voicings. So if you see them on a chart, it's going to say A add 2 with a slash and then C sharp. Slash chords, but not like, you know, not that guy. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but here you go. Move up a whole step, right? B add 2 over D sharp. Now how about a half step? I love modulating. Life's too short to stay in one key, you know what I'm saying? So C add 2 over E, D add 2 over F sharp. Now let's switch strings. So there's our shape, except now we're doing it on the G, B, and E strings, right? Over E, we have a nice add 2 shape. Same as this, same sound, just did it there. Now we're gonna move it down a whole step, and the bass note's going to play a B minor or a B to make a B minor 11, what I'm trying to say. That's a nice... That's great. That sounds great. Back to B minor 11, right? Now, more of those Lydian sounds. Same shape as what we did over our E add 2, except the bass is going to play a C. C major 7 sharp 11. Really cool. Then I moved it up 1.5 steps to here, put an A in the bottom, so it's the same sound as what we were doing down here earlier in the track, except it's up here for our 7 sus4 sound. Then the final chord, well, almost the final chord in this sort of cycle of madness here is this D7 sus4, because we're going to go back to the original key of G. Okay, so I use this over D as like a 5 chord. So essentially what I'm doing is this. But it sounds way more exciting to play that. Maybe not exciting, but a little bit, I don't know, more floral shirty or something. I don't know, it's yacht rock. So there we have it. Back to the top of the song. It's our good home bass voicing here, where the bass switches between E minor and G. That's it. So it sounds like a lot of chords. It kind of is. There's a lot of motion. I'll play it a couple more times. Maybe we could play it together, and we'll see how you do. So in the next scene, we're going to practice these together a few times. Keep in mind, you don't have to match my arpeggios. If you'd like to, great. But it's actually kind of cool if you can come up with some of your own on top of mine. It'll just make for a nice band moment between the two of us, right? So we'll see you there.